The city of San Diego got a stern warning letter this week about its plan to remove cars from Balboa Park. The National Park Service told the city the plan to build a bypass bridge will have a permanent and adverse effect on the park as a National Historic Landmark. Joining me to talk about what that could mean are Welton Jones, a member of the Committee of 100. That organization is against the Plaza de Panama project. David Marshall is also here. He is with the City of San Diego's preservation consultant for the Plaza de Panama project. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
So first of all, Welton, I want to talk about opposition to this project. Is it mainly this bypass bridge that you and the group that you're a member of oppose?
I think it's the bridge that sort of unifies the opposition. And there are several small and relatively unfunded groups that are in opposition to this, and there's a lot of people just off the street out there in opposition to this. There is no, unfortunately, well-funded, well-organized opposition. And the problem is, in fact, the bridge, yes, and the aesthetics of it, and the implications of continuing to bring traffic into the park.
Now, David Marshall, remind the people at home about the intent of this plan and who's backing it financially. I know Welton makes the point of saying the opposition isn't well-financed, but the people in favor of this are.
Well, it started with Mayor Sanders coming to Erwin Jacobs and saying one of his goals was to remove the long wished-for result of getting cars and parking and traffic out of the Plaza de Panama, which is the heart of Balboa Park, the large plaza by the Museum of Art. So the two met. They went up to the top of the California Tower and overlooked the park. And Erwin decided that still only closing that to parking and still allowing cars to drive through it was really not a good solution, because he saw the success of closing the East El Prado over by the Space Theater, and how successful that was. That's really the heart of the park as far as activity. And so he saw, why can't we close the rest of El Prado? And he realized that the Cabrillo Bridge is the only western access into the park. So how do you get people across the bridge but not driving through the middle of the park? You provide them a secondary route, and that's where the Centennial Bridge comes in, which basically brings cars around the rear of the Museum of Man and around the rear of where the museums are. And
he's willing to fund this to a large extent as well, Erwin
Well,
Jacobs.
He's created a committee. He's been funding it so far, including a very expensive environmental impact report that was just completed.
Right. I think he's also committed a large amount of money to this, and I should disclose to our audience that Erwin Jacobs is a major funder of KPBS as well. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this letter, and I want to show people at home some of the excerpts from this letter. Now, this comes from the National Park Service, and it basically says, look, this plan, we don't really like it. and let me sort of back that up. It says the NPS finds that the project will have a permanent, major, and adverse effect on the integrity of the Balboa Park National Historic Landmark. It goes on to say the project will physically destroy a part of the NHL property, National Historic Landmark, and the project will introduce visual elements and spatial changes that will diminish the integrity of the property's historic features. Third thing, in addition to the above concerns, we believe some elements of the proposed rehabilitation have the potential to create a false sense of history. How does the city respond to that?
Well, I could respond to all of those. Hopefully I'll have enough time.
But this sounds serious. This sounds like, I heard you earlier say on our midday interview that this letter does not put the historic landmark designation in jeopardy. But I think if you're listening at home, you might think it does.
No, it says there are aspects of the project, primarily the bypass to the Centennial Bridge, that they think they prefer wasn't there. The fact is that we have a historic district here made up of dozens of buildings and gardens and other spaces. The only, the term destroy, the only part of any historic feature that we're touching is 65 feet of railing at the very end of the Cabrillo Bridge where the Centennial Road connects. So, that is, I think, a little bit of hyperbole. We take their comments seriously, and we take their criticism seriously. In fact, the historic, both the independent historic consultant and the environmental impact report and the city's staff, historic staff, agree that the bridge is the only part of the project that doesn't fully comply with the historic standards. However, that doesn't mean the project can't go forward, and it doesn't mean it can't be mitigated to some extent or lessened. And we've redesigned the bridge to be as narrow and transparent as possible. It's within a grove of eucalyptus trees, which makes its visibility very minimal. We feel that there's a lot of focus on the bridge, But you have to remember, this is a very large project, over 6 or 8 acres.
I want to give Welton a chance to weigh in here, but first I want to let people at home know what's at stake in terms of there are less than 2,500 national historic landmarks throughout the country. Once you are on this list, you end up in a number of brochures, tourism brochures, and also you have access to funding for various preservation grants. So Welton, isn't it a good goal? Don't most people agree they don't want cars in Balboa Park? I mean, is it just a matter of how to get them out, or is it the idea that you want to change this in the first place?
Well, obviously the cars have got to go, and they probably will go because the city's getting bigger and the park's not. The idea of building a 700 and some odd place parking garage in the center of the park does seem to commit you to allowing cars to continue to come in. The obvious solution in the long haul, it seems to me, is a good public transportation system within the park, and the automobiles handled elsewhere. We have room to do that. We have the technology to do that. It's a plan that needs to be that's the plan that needs to be pursued, not this idea of tacking bridges on here and digging underground parking there, in my opinion, because those things are going to be obsolete almost immediately when we have to get all the cars out of the park. We're going to have to come back and figure out how to dynamite this bypass bridge and get it out of our way within 40 or 50 years.
We are out of time, so I have to end it there. I thank you both for being here, but I want to send people to our website, kpbs.org. There's a much longer conversation with both of you from Midday Edition earlier today. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.